And I think probably most of you know him. He's been a member of CSL for a long, long time, and his wife Christy. And you see them performing music a lot here. He's a wonderful, amazing musician. Writes a million songs a year and plays the guitar so expertly and beautifully and sings and yeah. But he's also a really good speaker. He always gives us lots of wonderful gems of wisdom. So let's welcome Dennis Soares.
I first want to start off by thanking our musicians. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful stuff. I love the recorder, it brings a tear to my eye. I play the recorder, but not like that. But I do have a MIDI wind instrument that's a lot of fun to play. So I'm going to be talking a lot about me today, and so I only have one sheet of paper for my talk today because this is all about me. And I don't mean that in a arrogant way. It's all about me and what happened in 2024. As we get older, most of us are going to face this challenge. We're going to rely on friends and family to help us make decisions because we can't make good ones on our own. And often physicians are involved in this as well. This is not true for everybody, but it's true for a lot of us that we need help. Christy and I sing at several care homes here, Life Center and the Veterans Home and places like that. And what we see out there are 80 to 90% of the people there are women in their 80s and 90s, and only 10% are men. And many of them could not have made a decision to be there on their own. They needed help to get there, and they can't take care of themselves, and nobody can take care of them from the family side. So as we age, we become less independent and in some cases more dependent on other people. My mom lived to be 87 years old independently at the Hilo Lagoon Center in Hilo, and she did all of her own bills. She balanced her checkbook to the penny. I kid you not. She would go ballistic if she could not get it balanced. I have never done that in my life. I don't even know what my balance is, ever. She had impeccable teeth. Mine are not. I'm losing them. She had impeccable health. She went to the doctor every 3 to 5 months, and everything always checked out on her. She had a stroke at 87, and that pretty much ended that part of her life for her. She had to rely upon her kids to make decisions for her. She had a wealth because she had sold a $15,000 home. Get this, in Kailua, she sold it for $750,000. I am the one that helped her sell that home. I was a realtor at that time. So she had wealth. That wasn't a problem. But what was a problem is she wanted to leave that wealth to her 4 kids. And she couldn't do that if she stayed in a place like Haleanui Nui. She would go through all of her money in 2 years. So decisions had to be made for her. And I know my mom was sad. The only thing she could do, and this is weird, she could sing and remember all the songs that we used to sing together. That part of her brain worked. But the part that she loved the most, which was talking to people, was gone. And that was hard for her, and it was hard for me. She died 2 years later in 2013. So I want to talk about what happened to me in the summer of 2014. I was walking 2024, excuse me. I was walking into a bedroom. I caught my big toe, my right big toe, on a carpet, and I broke it. I didn't know I had broken it, but I thought, well, I didn't feel any pain. So maybe it's not broken. I'll just treat it with some antibiotics and stuff. I waited about 2 weeks. My wife kept saying, you need to go to the doctor. You need to go to the doctor and get that checked out in X-ray. Of course, I am so sure of myself. I said, no, I don't. I'm fine. When I finally went, they did an X-ray, and I had an infection to the bone, which means one of three things. It means you either get your toe partially amputated, or you try oxygen therapy, which is not proven to work, or you try a direct infusion, and it was too late for that. So guess what I did? Partial amputation of my toe. So this summer, I had part of my toe from the toenail up on my big toe on my right foot cut off. It took exactly a half an hour to do this, and 2.5 hours for me to be recovered. It cost $8,000 to do that. Thank God that was what's called, and I want to give you a little education and have this be humorous at the same time. Part B, because I wasn't actually in the hospital, I was an outpatient. It only cost me $400 in a deductible for that, because I have Medicare and I have Medicare Advantage. Wonderful. But right about the same time, and my wife knows my story better than I do because I became a raving lunatic that summer. And she'll tell you that. I didn't know it. This is what happened. I first started hearing voices in my head. I didn't know what they were. It was like cows and dogs and people talking to me, and I didn't know where it was coming from, but it felt like it was coming right out of my head. I later learned that this was a condition relating to acid reflux. How could that be? But it's true. I never had acid reflux up to my mouth, but it came this far and I actually saw it. A doctor showed me where it was. So white stuff right in here. Once they treated me for that, the voices went away. But right about the same time, I started seeing things. We could call that hallucinations. I would look up at the ceiling fan, and I swear to God, I would see a cat up there, up on the fan, and I would see creatures on the windows that weren't there, and I would try to persuade my wife that all these things actually existed. And she would affirm, no, they don't. There's nothing there. I don't know what you're talking about. So, the reason I didn't feel anything on my toe, I have a condition called neuropathy. Anybody know what that is? Okay, some of you do. Some of you know that neuropathy is like a numbness in your feet and sometimes in your hands. And usually it's caused by diabetes or high blood pressure, but it's also a genetic condition. You can get it if your family has the genetic gene for that. My brother and I both have it. What do you do about it? Well, guess what? There is no treatment for neuropathy. I visited somebody locally here. You're going to laugh when you hear this. Christy and I went to this doctor. Very nice guy. He says, well, I'm going to test you. He tested my feet. I got everything wrong. He was putting a feather to my left foot, and I was saying I was feeling it on my right foot. Okay? I couldn't feel what he was testing me on. Basically, he came back and said, well, for $6,200 over the next 10 weeks, I can treat you, but I can't guarantee you it's going to work, and your medical insurance will not cover experimental treatments. I thank you, but no thank you. But he gave me one tip that was helpful. He said, go online and get one of these devices. What is this? This is an infrared light sensor. I think you got one that's bigger than this. This one is remote, so you can put it on any part of your body, including your feet, and leave it there for 20 minutes. It actually helps with the circulation. I'm going to turn it on and not aim at you because you're not supposed to look at this directly. So I'm going to turn it on this way, aim it at the wall so you can see what it looks like. I'm going to put it on the sleep mode, hopefully. There we go. Okay, you see that? Okay, that's what it looks like when it's working on you. And there's two different modes. You can set the level of intensity up or down. It's up to you. Turning it off is simply pushing a button. I've used that every day, almost every day since I got it. It does help. So if you're looking for some solution to neuropathy on your hands and your feet, that would be one. I hope to make this talk not only kind of funny, but educational. I know it hasn't been funny yet, but it will get funny in a minute, okay? After the toe surgery, I began to feel what is called, I didn't feel any pain, by the way. 3 days later, I felt intense pain like somebody was cutting my toe off. The anesthesia wore off, okay? And I felt like the toe that was cut off, I could feel it. We call that an artificial feeling of a limb still being there. Many people who lose their legs or part of their legs, they feel this sensation. I felt it. Not fun, by the way. So, I want to just talk briefly. If you're over 60, 65 or older, you're going to be faced with choosing between Plan A and Plan B. I suggest you choose them both. What's the difference? Plan A has a high deductible, like $1,400 or more, depending on what your medical plan is. Plan B has a lower deductible from $100 to $400. Plan B only works if you don't stay in the hospital. Plan A works if you stay in the hospital, you're going to pay at least $1,400. I'm going to tell you the total bill of this thing. You're not going to believe it when I tell you what the bill was to be in the hospital for a week. You're simply not going to believe it because I can't believe it. All right. But in any event, Plan A does not cover going into the hospital. So how did I get into the hospital? Well, I heard the voices in my head. I started falling down on a regular basis. I called EMS 3 times. 2 times they transported me to the hospital. Each trip to the hospital for 15 miles cost $1,600. Each one. Fortunately, I had a deductible. I only have to pay $500 of those bills. Okay? But I did make it into the hospital. How? My brother told my wife, and I hated him for this, he said, tell the paramedics that he's a danger to himself and a danger to society. And they'll admit him. And he was right. That's what she told them. He's a danger to himself, he's a danger to society, and they admitted me. Okay, so on October 10th, I was admitted to the hospital. I don't remember most of what happened there. I can tell you one thing, I wasn't terribly afraid because I don't remember most of what happened. But I can tell you one thing, I was like a guinea pig. There's 20 pages of documentation of all the pills that they gave me trying to cure all the symptoms that I had. And most of them didn't work for the first 6 days. On the 7th day, ta-da, I came out of it. And I have people to this very day telling me, like, Dennis, I can't believe you look normal and you talk normal. What the hell happened? And I said, I don't know. But somehow Spirit intervened and made sure that I could come back and live a realistic life again. Right? Am I boring anybody here? Okay, I hope not. Okay. So they gave me every test possible. What they determined was that the medication, by the way, I didn't mention this earlier, I am bipolar. If you don't get that from the way that I'm talking, then you don't know what bipolar is. Bipolar. Right? Bipolar people tend to talk very rapidly. They tend to be extremely intelligent. And they have some other things in common like OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. This would explain why I have made 175 musical albums over the last 50 years. Something in me is compulsive. I keep doing it. And we're working on a brand new one with a whole bunch of people I've never worked with before. So those are the symptoms of being bipolar. The medication that I was taking was 50 years old. In fact, Father Knows Best, Robert Young, was taking the same medication in the 1940s and 50s because he was bipolar. Lithium, that was one of them. All of these medications are old world medications. I needed to get off of them, but I didn't know how. So my therapist and I experimented. How can I get off of these medications? We tried making them more, we tried making them less, nothing worked. The hallucinations continued. And that's when I got checked into the hospital. So all my dated meds ultimately were dropped. I got brand new meds today that are new derivatives of the dated meds that don't have the same kind of side effects on your liver and your kidneys and all that stuff. All right? During my hospital stay, the worst part was the long nights from about 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I was basically alone by myself with a catheter in me, tethered. I could not put my feet on the floor, or a nurse would run up to me and say, put your feet back on the bed. Okay, Christy told me this, but I don't remember this. Apparently I was a runner. I wanted to run out of the hospital, and there was somebody else in my room who was also a runner, and I was right by the nurse's station so that I couldn't run out of the hospital. I believe there were people outside trying to get me on the inside of the hospital. Further, I believe my good friend John K. Abbey, a Grammy Award-winning guitar player, who some of you know, I believe he was the head of the mafia in the hospital. and that his good friend, Kenneth Makuakani, was a lieutenant in that mafia. Kid you not, and that I needed to talk to them in order to get out of the hospital. All right, some of the medications that they gave me caused me not to be able to breathe well. They had to put me on a ventilator. They called my wife in the evening saying this medication has affected him and he can't breathe well. He needs to go on a ventilator. I thought I was going to die on the ventilator. I told him, I'm not breathing any better on this thing. Just take me off of it. I also paid careful attention to what colored pills they were bringing me each morning in the cups. And I would say, don't give me that one again. It's giving me more hallucinations than it's taking away. And they would listen to me. All right. People came to visit me. My brother, Rev Bev, my wife came every single day. I never knew I was that bad off. I couldn't understand it when it came back to reality after the seventh, when so many people walked up to me and said, I'm glad you're back. Back from what? I never knew that I was that bad. But do you know, one of the doctors told my wife I was going to need 24-hour around the clock tending, and that she couldn't do it, that she should apply for Medicaid to get that service. I was also told by one of the doctors, so she was told, that I had a form of dementia, lunar body dementia, I believe it's called. Okay? So I was told all those things. I didn't know what any of that meant, and I wasn't willing to buy into any of it. I just wasn't willing to buy into it. If it was true, it was true, and there's not much I could do about it, but I don't believe Spirit had that in mind for me. Okay? So, when I was released, I had to have absolute faith that the medications that I was taking will actually work for me. What does that entail? Well, it entails trusting that I take this medication every day and it's actually going to keep me sane. I'm not going to have these thoughts anymore. I'm not going to have these visions anymore. I'm going to feel grounded and all the stuff that I used to feel on my older medications. By the way, I took my older medications for 30 years. That's a long time. I had a great deal of trust in my older medications until they failed me. All right. So what I did is I told my wife, let's keep a journal. Every day we'll keep a journal of how I felt, what my accomplishments were, what the anxiety level was, everything that I could track. And I tracked that every single day, and progressively it got better and better and better and better for me. To the point where I'm standing here in front of you now. I think I'm talking pretty coherently. Raise your hand if I'm talking coherently, please. Thank you. All right. It doesn't mean that I'm entertaining you, but I am talking coherently. So, I determined very early on that the only way to really get better was to serve. And I want to stress that. Serve. If you can take the attention off yourself and serve others, you can be well. That's the only thing that I could do. So, the only way I thought I could really serve was contact all these care homes and decide to volunteer my time. Don't worry about getting paid, and go sing to these people that really do appreciate it, rather than singing to a bunch of people at a farmer's market who really don't care about what I'm doing. And that's what we've been doing. We have 5 shows coming up at different light care centers on the Big Island. All right? I also started out of Karen's group, a men's empowerment group, for the same reason. I want to empower men to understand that they have the power to make a difference in their communities. And we've had several meetings. We meet once a month on the first Friday while the women are meeting, only once a month. And I cook all the food for everybody, and it's free. Okay. So by serving, I slowly took the focus on me, off of me. And there's a saying in life, whatever you focus on will present itself to you. So if you focus on yourself and you obsess over yourself, you'll bring more of that pain and suffering to you. Where am I at today? Well, I'm doing my best. The biggest frustration has been dealing with the hospital. I'm talking about Hilo General. And some of you may have this kind of frustration as well. They double billed me for a couple of things. The first thing was the $400 deductible on my toe surgery. They said they had no record we ever paid this. None. I called and called and called. No record. I went to my bank. I brought up a check that showed when they cashed it and how much we paid. I took it up to there. They still didn't believe me. It took 2 weeks for them to validate that we had paid that bill. Subsequently, after that, I got $2,200 or $2,300 in bills for the actual stay in the hospital. And then I got a bill the next day for $2,400, which appeared to be a duplicate bill. I say appeared to be because that one is still being contested. All right. Bottom line, you got to be your own best advocate when you go in the hospital, and you got to make sure you look at your bills and what you're being charged for. You can be screwed royal. I mean, big time. The hospital will be more than happy to keep my $2,400 payment, even if I don't actually owe it. They've already cashed that money, by the way. I'm trying to get it back. All right. So, very frustrating. And I want to say one thing to you that I told my wife yesterday. Do not suppress your anger. If you suppress your anger, this is what's going to happen to you. You're going to get ill, or you're going to gain 50 pounds. Okay? You're going to eat your way through your anger. Do not suppress it. If you're angry, be angry and then let it go. I have a theory that The Four Agreements is the best book I ever read in my life. What are the Four Agreements? By Don Miguel Ruiz. Always do your best. Be impeccable with your word, which I haven't done this week. Don't assume anything, and don't take anything personally. Those are the hardest four agreements that I've ever had to try to master in my life. And this past week, I have not been impeccable with my word. I've sworn at a bunch of people, and it's because I'm so angry over the situation that continues to go on that seems to be unresolved. Now, I don't know if you notice this, but in this technology world that we live in, even if you go to buy a TV, which we have now bought two, and we're returning the second one today, you have to be very, very careful about what you're buying. Because if you want a Roku TV, and the TV that you says smart TV, it does not mean that's a Roku TV. It means it could be any brand, and they put their own form of Roku in that TV. And some of the other brands, like Vizio or whatever, have much inferior Roku-like devices in them. So we're returning one today that won't stream. The remote takes 2 seconds to move anywhere. Nah, that's going to go back. Okay? So, yeah, getting older, there's lots of challenges, but that's one of them. Dealing with technology, dealing with codes you have to enter on the internet, dealing with people. I'll give you some examples. YouTube, that don't give you any number to cancel your account. No number whatsoever. You go to the YouTube phone and it says, if you want to add an app, go here. If you want a customer service, go here. Underneath it, it says, this number is no longer connected. Go to our website, log in and say you want to cancel, which I've done. You hear nothing back from them. So I don't even know if we're canceled. Okay, that's a breath on that. I want to tell you that for me, when I received the bills in November and December, my jaw dropped. $51,000 for my toe and the hospital stay. I'm not kidding. $51,000. I'm happy that they cured me, but I'm so disappointed in how much it costs to get cured in America. Now, fortunately, Medicare Advantage covered all but 10% of that. But we're not wealthy people. We got to put that on a credit card. We don't have $5,000 just sitting around in a bank account. So that all went on a credit card, of which we're now in a situation where we're paying 20 to 30% interest in America on credit cards. How do you ever get ahead? You don't. Make huge payments if you can. So this is the history of this year for me. And it's not over. I'm still engaging in this history. During the last 3 months, I have gone nearly deaf. I'm surprised that I can even hear myself talking to you. I don't know why. I have tinnitus in both ears. I'm going to see a doctor about it very soon. It's the next challenge for me. What is this about? Because this is very important to me. It's hard to record people and play if you're deaf. Okay? I can imagine how hard it was for Beethoven. By the way, tinnitus is something that Leonardo da Vinci not only had, but studied. And all the experts that are telling us that tinnitus, not tinnitus, but neuropathy is caused by broken nerve endings in your feet, they're wrong. According to Leonardo, who I would trust more than anybody living today, the nerves from your body go all the way to a hole in the back of your head and they connect to your brain. That hole gets filled with kind of like a calcium buildup and it starts to disconnect. What's the cure? You wouldn't believe it. Natural sugar. But it has to be an exact amount of natural sugar. It can't just be you pour sugar down your throat because you become diabetic. It has to be an exact amount. But that's the cure. And there are people that are working on that, and guess who's stopping them? This is not political. Big pharma. They're investing $3 to $5 billion a year in making sure no cure ever happens. And the research institutes that are located at universities and colleges, they don't want them to find a cure. They would just as soon get that money. All right? So in any event, where do we go from here? I don't know where you go from here, but where I go from here is really looking out for myself and really paying attention much more than I ever had before. Getting much more informed than I ever have before. Because technology is running away. AI is running away from us. And if we're not very careful, we can make decisions that are based upon really poor information. And since we don't have any real fact-checking anymore, even on Facebook, it's gone. We have to fact-check ourselves. We can use snoops.com and places like that to fact-check whether something on the internet is true or not. All right? So I'm basically done. What I would like to close you with is a short meditation. So close your eyes, be still. Father, Mother God, I don't intend this talk to be negative in any way. I am not a victim. And I want you to say that out loud with me. I am not a victim. Never during this process was I a victim. Whatever showed up in my life was a creation from me. Even if I didn't understand it or know where it was coming from, it was a creation from me. And that's the way life is. You create life from spirit, and then what you see out there is a manifestation of what you're creating. So we know that is true for each one of us here. We know that each one of us has the power to do that. And I encourage each one of you during the next coming weeks to seize that power and not be afraid. We're going to ask this to be blessed in the name of our Father, Mother, God. Let's say it together, and so it is. I have one more thing to tell you, and that is I'm a published author, big deal. These books are on Amazon, big deal. But I did bring 6 copies. 2 of this. This is a book I wrote about bipolar disorder before I knew what happened in the hospital was going to happen to me. So it's a little dated. This second book is a book of poetry. And this third book is a larger book of poetry I wrote mostly for my mother, and I dedicated it to her. They're going to be in the back table. They're free. If you want any of these copies, please feel free to take them. Okay? Mahalo nui loa for listening.